Hi, baddies. Welcome back to another episode of Terra's Baddies Club. I'm really excited because we have the podcast course coming up. It's coming up June 3rd. There's a series of different lives throughout the weeks. I know that the first week we have getting started with your podcast, all the questions that you want to have answered on June 3rd. And then on June 6th, we have a free panel for survivors who want to write their story. We have Danielle Lycum, Danielle Cedar, and Amy Chesler joining for that one. And then Dr. Leslie Dobson will be joining for the June 3rd one. And then also Danielle Slakeoff. So I'm so excited to have them all joining. And then also Angelique, who is joining our guest today. I'm so excited to have her because we connected over Instagram a while ago. We connected actually when my dog was passing away, Cash. And so I really like that she's been with me through a lot. And she has a really incredible story of survival. So we're going to talk to her about it. She also did some of the lives and got to really confine her story and also lock it down. And that is really something that I love to do, is helping survivors really get a format for their story and also getting more confidence in telling their story. So let's get into this episode today with Angelique. Hi, Angelique. I'm so excited to have you on today. We connected over Instagram, but because I saw you on Murder Diaries podcast, and well, actually, no, this was before you were on their podcast. I actually saw them maybe post something of yours or they were friends with you, and then I followed you, and then we connected. I don't know if you DM'd me or if I DM'd you, but we connected and I'm so happy to have met you.
Yes, yes. I'm super excited. I think that's how it went. I'm pretty sure that like at some point we became mutuals. And then I think I commented on you did your story with the Murder Diaries. And I think that's how it all started. Because I've heard your story a few different times. And then somehow I think I may have like posted something on your story, like a heart. I think it was your dog, Cash. That's what it was. You had a dog named Cash and I have a dog named Cash. And so I was like, I love, I'm so sorry to hear about your loss of your dog. Like I have a dog named Cash too. And that is how it all started.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And that time I was in such a disassociated state. So I did not connect the dots that it was that time. But I'm thank you for that during that time, because I definitely needed all the kind energy and kind love. And I love that you have a dog named Cash too.
Yes, he's a lab. We have a dog named Cash, and then we have a dog named June because we named him after Johnny Cash and June Carter. And so it was my dream. I told my husband a long time ago, before we ever had dogs, I was like, I just want to have a dog named Cash and June, and I just want to let you know. So throughout the years, we got a boy dog, then we got a girl dog, and I was like, okay, Johnny Cash and June Carter, it's perfect.
Oh my gosh. I love that, because that story, that story is a little toxic, but I mean,
It's such a cute love story too.
yes.
I love their whole storyline. I love Johnny Cash's music too. So that's how it all started. But absolutely loved it.
Oh my gosh, I love his music too. Sometimes it's just a go-to, especially when you're in a mood. You're just like, let's put on Wholesome Prism. Or what is it?
Absolutely.
Maybe I said the first name wrong. Yes. Okay, so we connected and then you have a story. So let's get into your story and then let's talk about some of the media that you have done and your thoughts about media and other stuff. Okay, so you have a story and you come on different podcasts. I met you through Murder Diaries and you did an episode with them. And can you start to tell me your story from wherever you want to start it from?
Yeah. So when I was 18, I was actually 17. I got pregnant and I lived in a small town. The town that I lived in, it was Maricopa, Arizona. And there weren't a lot of pregnant people around that time. This would have been 15 years ago. And I was very like lonely because everybody was doing like what seniors are supposed to do, have the time of their lives. And here I was pregnant. And this girl had moved to our town and met a lot of my friends, and she was supposedly pregnant also. So our friends had thought like, hey, this is great. Like, let's go ahead and introduce Angelique and Cassandra, and they can, be friends because she's new and pregnant, and she's pregnant too. Like they'll hit it off. So we ended up meeting, and it was great. Like we both felt like we had a connection. We both really enjoyed each other's company. So decided after like our little hangout to just like, exchange numbers and social medias, which at that time it was just Facebook. Facebook was fairly new at that time. So I think we also did MySpace, but MySpace was like almost like closing down at that point. But yeah, so like we just hit it off. It was great. And we never actually hung out again after that point, but we did talk almost every single day. She was friends with all of my friends. My friends actually probably knew her way better than I did. And there became a point a few months later that I was having my baby shower. And so I invited her. Some reason she wasn't able to make it. And so because she wasn't able to make it, she asked me if it would be okay if she came over to my house to give me the baby presents that she bought me from my baby shower. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I had lived with my parents at the time, and I invited her over. And within that time of her coming over, she had brought this big bag with her, and which it was like a big diaper bag. She told me she had the presents in there. She never gave them to me. And I think just because she was at my house hanging out all day, we just didn't get into the topic of like, hey, can I have my gifts? Plus, like, it's rude. Like, do I just, like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, like, I know you just came over, but can you give me my gifts? So, like, none of that was really like talked about. We ended up just hanging out all day and just did like what teenagers would do. Like, we watched at that point 16 and Pregnant had just came out. So we were watching like 16 and Pregnant. We were hanging out with my mom. We were eating lunch, like we were just doing normal things. And later on throughout the night, my mom had left to football practice. And so my mom asked if we wanted to go for a walk, and she started complaining about like her stomach was hurting. She wanted to stay back at my house. So I told my mom to go ahead and go. So my mom left with my two brothers to football practice. And at that point, everything changed. Like Cassandra was a completely different person. She wasn't mean. There was nothing like that I can really state that would tell you like what changed. It was just like her demeanor, like everything was just odd. And when my mom left, she told me that the whole reason she came to my house was because she bought me these baby presents. So she was like, oh my gosh, I bought you these baby presents. I really want to give these to you. And I was like, okay. So she sat me in the middle of my kitchen and told me to turn around and close my eyes. And I was like, okay. And so like I'm sitting in the kitchen chair and I'm sitting there just turned around, and she would come up behind me and drop like a baby gift in my lap one by one. So like it was like literally how I'm sitting right now with somebody just walking behind me and dropping a gift. And she dropped like a baby onesie, a newborn onesie. She dropped like a receiving blanket, a regular blanket, mittens, little booties. Basically, it was like one of everything that you would take to a hospital for like when you're about to deliver a baby. And the last gift that she gave me was like this baby wearing object. So back then, I know like now, like they have all these different like baby, they're like you know what I'm talking about, like a baby wearing, where you put the
Like a
baby in.
baby Bjorn.
Yes, exactly like
Yeah.
that. There weren't
Okay.
that many back in the day though, so there was only like the generic kind. And so she bought me one, and I know those things are expensive. So, I just was like, I felt like I didn't deserve this. Like we weren't that close of friends. I felt kind of weird accepting that type of gift, but she had reassured me like how much she liked me and how much like just having that friendship with me really helped her because she's new to our town, and she's like, I just feel like we understand each other, and I just wanted to gift you something like this. And I was like, okay, thank you. I was very happy about it, but also just felt kind of weird. She then told me that she had one last gift for me, and she told me that it was like a surprise that she wanted to show me in my room because it was dark. Do you remember those like pillow pets? It was like a pet, and then like it shined on the ceiling, and it had like the stars everywhere. And they'd be like on infomercial, like on like the TV, and they'd be like pillow pets.
I think maybe.
Yeah, it would be like a turtle or like a bear, and then it had like little stars on it. And when you would turn it
Okay.
on, it would like shine onto the ceiling, like a nightlight.
Okay.
So that like back When I had my baby shower, I really wanted one because they were really cool. I didn't get one. And so she had overheard me talk about that, saying that I wanted this gift so badly and I never got it. So when she was showing me these gifts, she was like, I bought you that gift. Like I bought you that what you wanted, except it was specially made for Ryland. And I was like, oh, like let me see it. And she was like, oh no, I want to show you in your room. So we go to my room, she turns the light off, closes the door, tells me to turn around and close my eyes again. And so at that point, like it's already dark in the room, but I did turn around and I'm sitting there waiting for her to give me this gift. But as that's happening, I start to have like these weird feelings, almost like weird thoughts inside of my head. And it was like I was having a conversation with myself, but it wasn't me. It was like somebody was telling me what was about to happen to me before it even happened. So in my head, it was like this conversation going like, you're about to get stabbed, and specifically it wasn't like you're about to get hurt, it was like you're about to get stabbed. And I was like trying to go back and forth with myself, and the only way I can like help somebody understand like what was going on, like when you watch those cartoons and you have the evil guy and like the the angel, and it's going like this, and it's like you should do this, you should do that. That's what I was doing with myself. It was
Okay.
bizarre. And I've never, at that age, I was only 18. I had never been through anything. Like I didn't know what intuition feeling was. I didn't know like what was going on. I thought maybe I was just having like a lot of anxiety. And this all was happening within like under a minute. So like when I tell the story, people are like, were you just standing there like forever? And I'm like, no, like this was literally a minute of me just fighting back and forth with myself. But this feeling was so intense that every time I tried to shrug it off, I could not get rid of it. So, with that being said, I'm having this conversation with myself. She's digging into this bag, and I'm so scared that I turn my body so that I can kind of see her, but it is pitch dark, and I sit on my bed. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I can see her. I feel better. Then she grabs the bag, gets up behind me on the bed, and I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm just going to show the light over your head. It's going to shine onto your closet. And I was like, okay. And so I'm sitting there, and this intense thought gets even worse. It gets so bad that, like, it's drilling in my head that I'm about to be stabbed. Like, you're about to be stabbed. You're about to be stabbed. That she puts her hand on my shoulder and she goes, are you ready? And I was like, yeah, show me the gift. And she leans me forward, and I'm 9 months pregnant at this point. So my stomach is really big. And I'm like, Cassandra, you're hurting me. And she was like, one, two. And on three, something screamed in my ear, get up. I stood up as fast as I could, ran and turned the light on. And I was like, what are you doing? And she was putting something back into her bag. And then weird, like randomly at the exact same time, somebody calls her. And so she gets on the phone and she starts talking to somebody in Spanish. And I'm just staring at her like, what just happened? And I'm trying to like collect my thoughts, and I'm trying to understand and put everything together, like what just happened. But I can't make sense of it. I can't make sense of what I felt. I can't make sense of why I was in the room in the dark. I can't make sense of what she was putting back into her bag. All I know is that I'm so scared. But I'm obviously not an expert, but I've watched a lot of like true crime, SVU. I watched a lot of things that if you don't let them know that you're about to be killed. Like you don't make a panic like that. But with that being said, I'm also 18 years old, and I'm very nervous that I might just be all in my head. And if I were to call the cops, or if I were to tell somebody and I'm completely wrong, like everybody at my school is gonna be like, she's fucking crazy. Angelique called the cops on our friend because she thought she was trying to murder her. Like I'll admit, like I was acting like a teenager. Like I didn't want I didn't want to make the wrong call. But with that also being said, I knew something was going on deep down inside. So I just played it cool and pretended like I didn't, like it wasn't a big deal, to see where this was going to go. And it ended up going into a whole different direction that I thought it was going to go. She ended up starting my house on fire. Um, yeah, she started my whole closet on fire with candles in my room. And when the I'm like, it was really big. Her whole plan at the very end of everything with the confession was that she was going to kill me, perform a C-section on my body to take my unborn child. And then she started my house on fire to burn my body with all the evidence. So like that was her whole plan. That's what she states like in her confession. Everything kind of didn't, and she states like everything didn't go according to plan because I kept kind of messing everything up. And she also had a conscience. Like she said that I was so nice that when she had the knife, when I was turned around, she had the knife to my back and she was just getting ready to push it into me. but I jumped up too fast, and she's like, just like her conscience got in the way of it too.
I mean, I was expecting her. I wasn't expecting the fire. I was so shocked by that because I mean, we talked about your story a little bit, but we didn't ever talk about the fire. And like, knew about this other person, and
Like the guy on the phone, the one that was calling.
yes,
Yeah. Cause that all was stuff that I will say that, like, when I first started telling my story, or when I first, even not even telling my story, when I first like went through court and everything, this person was never mentioned, but in like court documents, in like police reports, in the confession, like there's this other person that's like involved somewhere. I just never knew about them. So in 2020, I found out after she got released. But yeah, this other person was all about, like, all a part of it too, which goes into like, that turns into like this whole rabbit hole, to be completely honest. So we won't go down that because I know it's kind of difficult with that one. But with the fire, I had lit a candle in my room. Not There was no specific reasoning why I lit a candle. It was just because I liked candles and I wanted my room to smell good. And do you remember those little like teacup candles, and like it had the incense? Like you would light the teacup candle and then it would like make the oil burn like a
yeah.
little drops in, and that's what I had. So I had that in my room and I lit the candle, and she went into my room to try like a dress on, and when she did that, I guess she took the candle and she like put it all over my clothes and like lit it with the candle. And she started like this really, really slow fire. And then I went and I'm probably confusing you now. I'm sorry.
No, no, you're not. I'm just like, this is just when I hear people's stories, like, I'm always, I have a crazy story too. Well, not a crazy story, just it's who would do this to someone? And I'm sorry that you had to experience this because this is just not normal human behavior at all. This is just insanity to me that someone would do this.
And especially at 18, that's what made it a little harder to understand. And I think it made it a lot harder for people to believe me because I didn't go through like a fair trial. I didn't go through the support. Like when this all first happened, before I even gave birth to Ryland, like when this all happened, and she never got arrested until like almost like a month later. So within the time of this happening and her getting arrested, people thought I was like attention seeking. Like I was making this whole scenario up. So it was really hard for me to believe what had happened to me because others didn't believe me, including the cops, including like everybody. Like I feel like I was let down by so many people. And because of that, it makes it difficult for me to tell my story because I feel what they said about me, or I feel all of everything that I felt like when I was younger. And it feels just like it's such an unbelievable story because like it's an unbelievable act. And I think that's what took me a really, really long time to understand, that sometimes people don't. Maybe my story is so complex that it does take me hours to tell it because I have to break it down by section for people to fully understand what happens. Once you hear my whole story from beginning to end, it makes sense. And it's so scary because this is happening more and more to women. 14, 15 years ago, it was happening, but it wasn't happening so frequent. And now since like it's happened to me, I think there's like maybe like 6 people that like I can recall that have been murdered, and either them or their baby or both.
Just wow. What is it like hearing that it's happening more and more? Do you want to be more proactive of speaking out now?
I That was my goal. Like since the beginning, I've I'm trying to figure out how to say this correctly. You have support groups for like rape survivors. You have support groups for like attempted murder. You have stories for DV. You have all this like support groups for different types of crimes. But like, have you ever heard of a support group for like a fetal abduction? Like, have you like no? And it scared me from wanting to tell my story because like who can relate to me? Who can relate to how I feel? And so I started to learn when I started to go down this journey of like telling my story and trying to learn to heal, I realized that trauma is trauma and that no matter how big someone's trauma is, it doesn't matter. I don't need a support group that's going to be just for people with fetal abduction. You, me, other people, people that have been in accidents, like all of our trauma hits in different ways. But in the end, like we all feel things the same. And so I feel like because I'm a survivor of attempted fetal abduction and there really isn't that many, I think there, as far as my knowledge, there's one other person. But I want to be able to be a voice, not just for myself, but for my son and also for the women that aren't here because all they are right now is a news article. All they are is a documentary based off of somebody else telling their story. But you aren't going to hear what happened to them, exactly how it happened, because we're never going to know the facts. And I feel like I was so lucky enough to survive that like I have so much knowledge behind this that I feel like I was an 18-year-old girl who didn't understand what fetal abduction was. And I guarantee you there's a lot of 18-year-old girls that have no idea what this is. And I don't want to tell it for them to be scared. I want to tell it for them to understand and to have knowledge of it. Because it may be my intuition saved my life. And I remember listening to one of your podcasts, Terra, and you talked about that intuition feeling that you had. And that's what sparked me to realize that maybe we all have this weird feeling before something bad happens to us. Like, I don't know, like it just really opened my mind into thinking that I didn't understand what intuition feelings were. And maybe a lot of other people don't either. And like that could be the number one thing that saves their life from becoming not from going from a victim to a survivor. Because,
Yes.
I just feel like I don't know. I don't know if I explained that correctly, but
No, 100%. And I get it because I was even going to mention that I had premonitions and dreams about John and just thought John was going to kill me, and how I want to validate you in that intuition, having that intuition, that premonition. And thank goodness you got up and like you stood up, because literally, like, people joke about people stabbing people in the back, and this person was literally going to stab you in the back, you know?
like literally, and that's what makes it even crazier when people are like people. And I will say I'm the very biggest person on trauma humor, on trauma jokes. Like it's very sometimes people think it's like sick, but I find it very healing and coping.
Yes.
But people will be like, wow, like your friend literally was trying to stab you in the back. And I'm like, I know, isn't that crazy? Like that's the terminology that we use, but that's literally what was about to happen. And there was that 1 second, less than 1 second, that literally was, it changed my fate. It changed me from being a mother that either passed away or, lost my baby to being a survivor, to being this person and that I think that's what motivates me to share my story and to talk about things is because I survived. I'm not exactly sure what that reasoning is. I feel like there is a reason behind it. I feel like I just have to do something about it. And so I think that's what's kind of made me want to talk about it more. And it's different now. 14 years ago, talking about my story, it wasn't like how it is now. TikTok and Instagram have like completely just blown up how survivors can talk about things. And I feel like back in the day, we were in this like hush hush scene. Like we don't talk about our trauma. Like we just keep our trauma inside of us and we don't blare it out. And now this whole like, era is like, let's talk about it. And I love it. I love it because we're all finding people. I found you because of it. And I found out that like things that I feel I don't have to feel ashamed of because I felt ashamed for a really long time, or I felt like maybe like part of it was my fault of why this happened to me.
Yeah, no, there is a lot of shame that comes around from even just surviving, like so many thoughts, and it's different for each of us. But it's a lot to go through even afterwards, and knowing that you could have been dead and then there's so much more to your life now.
Oh, absolutely. There's moments that I sit there. Rylan just turned 14 on February 26th. And so I sit there and I look at him, and all I think about is like, it was that 1 second that declared whether I was going to be your mom or not, or whether you were going to be somewhere else or you were going to be with somebody else. That those emotions take over sometimes. And I just feel so grateful. I feel grateful. And that's what makes me feel like Yeah, like you don't, just because you're a survivor doesn't mean you have to talk about it. It doesn't mean that you have to, want to be an advocate. You don't have to do these things. But I will tell you, it was probably the most rewarding feeling being able to take my story back and tell it word for word how like it happened and how I lived through it. And it was so healing. I've never felt that type of like joy with telling my story. It is exhausting, don't get me wrong, but it comes with such good benefits of like, I don't know, just taking back your story, just taking it back and telling it how you want to tell it and not letting the media tell it for you, because unfortunately that's what they do. They do. And it doesn't, news articles do it, TV shows do it, podcasters do it, it's just people want to take your trauma and turn it into what they are, like, or what they think it is. So it's good for you to take your story back and just tell it word for word how it happened.
Yes, I love it. I'm so proud of you now because you really taken back your power. And even from like a year ago, you just have like built yourself up so much and like you're confident in your story now, opposed to, before you were just like, you just have a better flow to it. You just have a better way of telling it, not that it wasn't good or anything before, or just like the way you were. It was just like now you have the power of owning it.
That's a good way of saying that. Like really good way. It's true though. It is, because when I used to tell it, I would jump around. Even now, like I feel like it's because it's such like it takes a lot for somebody to understand my story, because like I said, there are different. I had to break my story into 9 different what is it called, like videos on like Instagram and TikTok, because I had to break it down like this is what happened, this is what happened, this is and this, for everybody to understand. And it's because it's complex, and it sucks when people come on and they're like, I don't understand, or they don't want to take the time to understand. So it becomes so discouraging for the person that's talking about it. But I can tell, like how you stated, I can tell the difference between like night and day of like 3 years ago when I told my story to now. And it's definitely confidence. Like when you build that confidence and that power within yourself, take back that power, it just changes everything.
Yes, yes. And then I apparently, okay, so TikTok, it shows like videos, pops up, and unless you go to the actual person's page and it's like, okay, there's the next video, there's the next video. I apparently missed the one about fire.
And no, you're okay. I think, when I first told my story on TikTok, people wanted this fast. Like they were like, "Can you like hurry it up? Like, can you tell it?" And I was like, "Okay, okay, okay." Like I kept trying. So I kept trying to figure out ways to like cut things out. And when I went on this last time to tell my story, which is my favorite story time, I will say hands down, the story time that I posted last year that I have pinned like on my TikTok is my hands down favorite story, because like favorite way that I've ever done it. And it's because I literally took my time. I took my time and did it. My first like part one is so confusing. It's confusing because I'm so used to people telling me to hurry up, and I was getting like the opposite. Everybody was like, "Can you slow it down? Like I need you to break it down what happened and go back to the fire. Like how did the fire start?" And I was like, "Okay, you guys want me to slow it down? Okay, I could do that." So then that opened me up to literally telling them everything. And I've sat there and rewatched like my videos, and they're long, but I'm like, wow, like I'm even impressed with myself. The fire is in like part two, but I
Okay.
very briefly talk about it. And I realized that people had questions like, why did she start the fire? How did it start? And so like I always have to tell people, like, I'm so sorry. Like it started from the candle. Like the candle is literally what started it. Was it a part of her plan? No. Like she didn't come into my house thinking that she was going to start a fire in my house. It was literally just the fact that I kept messing up her plans. So every time I messed something up, she would call this person in Spanish because I couldn't understand her. And then they would just come up with like plan B, plan C, plan D. Like the whole plan, like when you listen to the confession, it wasn't even supposed to be in my house. They were supposed to lure me to a park, and they were gonna put me in the van and take me back to her house and do the C-section there.
Oh my gosh, so someone else was in this with her?
Yes, and the cops had lied to me and told me that she was obsessed with having babies. But I have it in the confessions of the interrogations of them talking to her for 3.5 hours, and not once Not one time did she ever state that she wanted my baby because she was obsessed, like, or she had like, she was like she had a miscarriage, or there was nothing. She literally tells, I even have the confession on my TikTok where I posted bits and pieces of it. She literally states that she was a part of a gang and that she was the gang leader's like possession basically. And she was told that she had to find somebody who was pregnant. And that's when she came to our town. She met all my other friends. They said, "Oh, we know this girl named Angelique and she's pregnant too. Let's introduce you guys." And from that moment, she had been stalking me for months. So like in her room, they were able to find like evidence. When we first went to court, it was attempt of first degree murder because she had premeditated this for months. And they had proof to show that she premeditated it. And in the confession, sorry to jump back to the confession, she talks about how he told her to find somebody. So she did. And they go, "Okay, well, what was the plan?" Like, he told me to hit her up on the head or kill her, stab her. He's like, "I don't care. Just get that baby out. Like, we're going to sell that baby to somebody in Mexico." When she talks about it, she says, "We usually do this. He normally does this," which indicates, like, when you use that type of verbiage, it indicates that that wasn't their first time. And then they ask her, like, "Well, what were you going to do?" She was like, "I was just going to stay in Mexico. I wasn't going to come back. Like, I was just going to stay in Mexico." From what the confession states, they had a buyer waiting like at the border for Rylan.
Oh my gosh. Okay, this would make me so protective of him when he was born. Were you a very protective mom? Are you some protective mom?
I am extremely protective. I've had throughout therapy, I've had to learn to not, I didn't have to learn. I've learned different, like, I've learned to not try to be like a helicopter mom, but I was one. Like, I was throughout, like, when everything had happened. And even when she went to jail, like, I was just freaked out of everybody. Like, I didn't trust people. Nobody ever watched my kids. I never stayed home alone. I don't think I actually started staying like if my husband had to work out of town, like, all my friends and family knew, like, "Oh, Josh is leaving. Someone needs to go stay with Angelique," because I was always scared. I was always scared of everything and everybody. And what sucks even more is when you have a baby, you have this like mindset of how things are going to go. Like, you make up this whole thing inside your head, like, we're going to do this every day, or we're going to do that, or I'm going to learn this. I didn't have that. I was literally going through like this weird trauma and this weird, I was dissociating so much that I don't even remember Ryland's first year. I don't remember his first words. I don't remember when he first walked. I don't remember what food he ate. I don't remember anything because I was just trying to survive. If I had to say she took anything from me, she took my first year with my son. She took all my memories away. She took all my confidence away. She took any stability that I had literally away. And it took me till 2020 to even go to therapy. So I waited until she literally got released because I just felt like for so long that I was fine. We all say that. "I'm fine. I'm fine. It's okay." Like, "Oh, you went through this huge thing." "No, I'm good. I don't need therapy. Like, me, myself, and I, we got this."
Oh my
And
God. Yeah.
yes, I feel like, and whenever I talk to people about this, they're like, "I understand." And I'm like, because I think that's what we all think. We all think that we're strong enough to just do it on our own. And it's not that we're not. It's not that we're not. It's just that we don't know the skills or the coping mechanisms, or even sometimes we just got to talk to somebody about it and remember that we're not alone. And that like opens up so many doors to like healing and your trauma. And it taught me how to, let Ryland be a kid and not just coop him up inside all day. Like, I'm sure he loves hanging out with mom, but at the same time, like, he deserves to be a child. I'm learning how to not be scared of everything in life, I guess, if we're to sum it up. I have a fear of everything. Like, I have like this fear of like my kids crossing the street and they're going to get hit by a car. Like, it's not just that, it's all things that happen on a daily basis, like, to other people. And that's what freaks me out, is that I feel like something bad happened to me. So I feel like I'm destined to have something bad happen to my kids. And it's horrible. It's a horrible thing to like have to think about all the time. So I'm currently working on that in therapy as we speak.
Well, I can just imagine even when I have kids, I'm going to be very protective. Also, working in true crime and knowing other people's true crime stories, you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to become best friends with the teacher. I'm going to know everyone. I'm going to have to work on that as well, because when you are stalked, when you have these types of people in your life, it makes it hard to trust other people. And especially because you kind of can see evil in other people sometimes too. And when this happens as well, I feel like it makes you, and then you go through the learning, the healing process too, even heal and you realize, okay, my intuition actually trusted, like my body trusted it. And so I'm actually capable and my instincts say myself. So where's the balance between that and, because you saved your life, so your instincts were correct. Like you should be wary of everyone.
It is, I think, the hardest thing. And I don't know if you go through this. I have the hardest time, even with trusting my intuition and knowing it. I have a hard time sometimes understanding like what the difference between intuition and anxiety is, because I feel like the anxiety, because of going through something so traumatic, it's just like you feel like almost like every time you have this feeling, like, am I wrong or am I right? Or am I just like super anxious because I went through something? So that's like the part that I have a hard time understanding or trying to like filter out, is because I feel like when we go through something so bad, we just know that there's evil in this world. And then how do you say, okay, well, this is what's evil and this is not? I feel
Yeah.
like that's like a downfall of being like a survivor, is that you just been through something so bad that you automatically sometimes think that other bad things are going to happen, especially like listening to like true crime like stories. Oh gosh, I can't even do that. I don't even listen to true crime anymore because it freaks me out.
Oh my gosh, I just watched the Ruby Frankel story and
Oh
her
my gosh.
yeah, her daughter Sherry, I'm sorry if I don't get the names right, but like her daughter talks about her story. Her daughter also has a book out now, and it's just crazy to me that this stuff happens. And so many things happen where people can have a semi complete experience, or the person's like okay for a certain amount of time, and then the person gets completely unhinged, like where in the Ruby Frankel stuff, like the husband, I mean, there was little signs that like she was controlling, she was way too into her YouTube. Like, should people really monetize off of people like making YouTube channels about their children? It's so interesting to think about. I don't know, it's just like the stuff that happens, but I can't even imagine people doing stuff to kids. And this person who was going to do something to you too was also going to sell your baby. And how does she even know that it's going to end up in a safe environment and with a safe person? I don't know. Just how can you do that to even like another human, yet alone another little soul?
Yeah, I always think that too. And I always wonder also, like, where did she think she has the credentials to perform a C-section? Like, that part really mind boggled me. Like, you're 17, 18 years old, and it makes me sad. And this is who I am because I'm such a nice person. It makes me sad that she felt like she had to be in this situation. I can't help but wonder if, like, let's say this whole gang thing, because I don't know what the truth is. I know what the police told me. I know what happened during trial. And then I know that none of that was stated from the confession. Like, I found this all out in 2020. So she had been released in 2019. So after her release, I found out the whole gang situation and I listened to the whole confession. But I can't help but wonder and feel sorry for the fact, like, what if she didn't want this life? Like, this was something that she got like a part of. Maybe this guy was abusive towards her. And that's like where my mind goes to, like, how did somebody who was 18 years old get herself into the situation to do this to another woman? Let alone, like, you were going to not even just stab me, you were going to cut my stomach open and take my child. Like, that is insane. Like, that literally is insane. I can't wrap my head around an 18-year-old doing that or wanting to do that. So I do think that there was somebody else that was like the ringleader of everything and was just telling her what to do. But no matter what, like, the fact that she even thought that or she felt like that was okay, it's just crazy. Like, I don't believe that, we ended up doing 8.5 years. And I don't think it was enough time because it was premeditated. Like it was plotted out, it was thought out. You didn't just do attempt to first degree murder. Like you committed arson. You were going to burn my body. Um, and when you hear, like in the confession, when you hear her talk, she's just so nonchalant. Like, yeah, I was just going to do that. She literally states, I was just going to stab her. I didn't want to kill her, but I had to do what I had to do to get the baby.
I was gonna say, if someone who was stabbed, just stabbing someone, like, you're just gonna stab someone.
No, and I mean, I couldn't even imagine. Like I literally could not. And like even in her when we went to trial and we were at the like when we were at sentencing, the judge gave her an opportunity to like not like I guess not to apologize, but to like talk. So like at sentencing, we both got the opportunity to talk. So I actually like wrote this long letter and I, talked and I don't remember exactly what it stated. It was long, but she was given the opportunity and she literally stood up and was just like, he was like, do you have anything that you want to say to this woman? She stood up, put her hands like this and said, no, Your Honor, and smirked and then just sat down. I was like, she has no remorse. Like there is no remorse. Even when I saw her during when she got released, there was no remorse. And that just is scary. It's scary to think that we have people out there just like living daily lives like nothing had ever happened.
Wow. Wow. How do you feel about her being out now? Or is she still out, or did she do something stupid to go back in?
She's still out. I do know more. I know people always get nervous for me. I will say that I think the most messages I get are like, aren't you scared telling your story that she's gonna see this or that she's gonna come back after you? Or, I will say that I don't talk about Cassandra. I do know a lot about her life that I will never share on the internet, and that's because it's her personal business. And I'm not here to tell my story to have people find her and, I'm not trying to ruin her life. I'm trying to share my story for like, educational purposes, to help other people for healing, all these different things. But with that being said, I'm not naive and I'm not stupid. I do very much keep a very close track on us being apart from each other. When she first got released, though, I did take off of work for like it was like 4 to 6 months, like intermittent, because I didn't want to fall into a schedule. I didn't know if she did want to, like, I don't know. You watch those like weird movies, like where people go to jail and they like are mad and they get out and they have like this plan and plot to like come back out and kill you. So, like, with that being said, when she got released, I changed my whole routine. I changed everything about my life. I was like, I didn't move, but like I changed what I did, how I took my kids to school. I changed everything up because I didn't want her to ever find a schedule of mine. And after like a few years of doing that, I realized that like she's just trying to live her own life and I'm just trying to live mine. So that fear has gone away, but I am very much like it won't actually go away. Like I'll always be high alert and I'll always like I've told the schools, I've showed them pictures of her, I've given them police reports, I've given them everything so that they know like also like these are my children. She is never allowed to be like near them. And so like they do I make sure I make it known. I live in a town where a lot of people know me. So I will say that I have learned throughout the years to not be as paranoid as I was, but I was very paranoid in a long story short.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Like, how could you not be like, she gets out and then this horrible thing happened to you and she did it and she's not remorseful? But I will say this, that this would give me a little bit comfort that she, like, it seems like she was motivated by someone else, you said as well. I mean, what she did, like, no one should be motivated by someone else to do that. Like, you say no to doing that. Also, like, she was also had a buyer, so she was trying to get money for it.
Mhm.
It wasn't that she was trying to just keep it for her own, you know what I mean? So that would give me, oh, like, I don't know about you, and I'm sorry if this like makes you feel any type of way, but it would make me feel a little bit relieved that she at least like isn't still like obsessed with him, you know?
No, absolutely. Because when she got released in 2019. What is it? One, two, three, four, five, six. So Rylan was like 9, like 8 or 9. And I knew that this is actually, when she got released, I will say that I didn't know about the whole buyer thing. So I actually did think that she was just obsessed with Ryland and with having him. I didn't find out until a year later. So I went a whole year of her being released actually thinking that, like, potentially, like, she could have wanted Rylan. So that I will, now that I'm remembering, that until I actually went and got the police report and listened to the confession, I had no idea. So I actually did go through a whole year thinking that, like terrified, because I really did think that she was like cuckoo and like she wanted my baby and that she like thought Rylan was her baby. It did make me feel better knowing that Rylan wasn't a baby, because I was like, okay, he's obviously older. And that is why I actually told him. I think Rylan was 8 or 9. And I had to sit down and I had to talk to him and tell him, like, from beginning to end what happened and like why she's dangerous and like who she is. And I had to show him pictures of her and just like explain it. And that was actually super difficult to do. In 2020, when I had went down to the police station and grabbed everything, it was like reopening my whole trauma up, because I felt like there was this whole side of the story that I never knew.
Yeah, wow. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that time also without not knowing that, because that would just amplify things even worse, you know?
No, absolutely. Because if I would have known about the whole Mexico thing, if I would have known, I would feel how I feel now. I would feel safer. I would. Exactly what you stated. It makes you feel better knowing that there was like a plot and like about money and about all these different things. And here we are, years and years later. Absolutely. Like, I 100% agree. And I don't take any offense to what you said, because I very much do feel that way now. But yeah, when she got released, like when I went to her release, I was still in the mindset and still thinking that she was just a sick woman who was obsessed with my baby, who thought that my baby was hers. Because that's what I had gone through my whole, like, from this happening to me all the way till that moment. That's what I've been told. That is what the police told me. And shame on me for, like, I'm not going to say shame on me, maybe more like I didn't do I didn't do any of the investigating. I just trusted that everybody would do what was best for me. Like, I don't know, like, I've learned now that, like, that's not the case. But 14 years ago, I really thought that what had happened to me was a really big deal. So I thought that, like, there was no way somebody could like fuck me over. But they did. They did, because another big thing, Tara, is that the cops told me when we went to trial, they told me they wanted to go with a plea bargain. And I asked them why. And they said because at the time of her confession, the cops didn't read her Miranda rights. So the whole confession is thrown out. And they said, we can go to court and we can go to trial. But if we do, there's a huge possibility that she will walk, because it's not illegal in Arizona to carry butcher knives with you.
It's just like carrying it around on the street. Like, what?
Yeah, it's not
Okay.
illegal.
Okay.
I can walk down the street in my purse and just carry 2 large butcher knives with me. And it's fine. It's totally fine. And I was like, I remember being on the phone with them and saying, but you guys literally told me that, like, you guys have proof of her like premeditating, like planning this. They said, yeah, but without her confession, it's just all going to get thrown out. And I was like, why wouldn't the cops read her Miranda rights? They scared me into a plea bargain. And that's what we ended up doing, 8.5 years. And they put her in ASH, which is the Arizona State Hospital. So here we are, she gets released, and I, in 2020, get a wild hair up my ass and decide I'm going to take my trauma head on. I'm going to go get the police report. I'm going to get the confession. I'm going to grab any piece of evidence that I can find, because I feel like I am strong enough now to understand my whole case. So I did that, all to find out and all to find the Miranda rights. I hear them in the confession. They read her Miranda rights, Tara, and it's in the police report. They say, we read Cassandra her Miranda right. So let's just say that I have like, the justice system for me failed me in so many ways. So many ways. My case should have went differently. There should have been different things that happened. I was so just traumatized and trying to figure out how to be a mom that I let it happen. But again, this is just because I realistically thought that everybody was on my side. I thought that everybody was there to do the best for me. And I was so traumatized, and I was young. I was 18 years old. I just put my trust into everybody, and it just goes to show that you can't do that. We will do it.
There is a lot of I should have done this, I should have done this, but you were in that trauma. You were still young. You had to and one thing I hear you say too is I trusted people. And that is so huge, especially after the trauma that you went through, to trust people. So I think you need to give yourself the benefit of the doubt.
Have a hard time, and I do, like, after with you telling me that right now, my brain clicked and said, okay, that's right, like I need to, and I do know that. I will say that it's been 14 years and I still do it to myself constantly. I know that I'm not to blame. I know that I did everything right. I know that I was young. I know that, like, I know all these things, but I still can't help but, like, blame myself for certain things, or or feel like I have to take some type of accountability. And here I am. I do it. I do it all the time. Even when I try not to, I do it. But you're right. You're right about that.
Well, I do it too. So when I do it to myself, you just remind me the same, and we'll just go vice versa because I think it is a part of the trauma response, especially when you are an empathetic human and you're even having empathy for this perpetrator that hurt you. So, I think you're doing really well. We're doing great. Trauma affects you in the long run, but however, I think that it's made you such a great person too.
It really has, and I feel comfortable with myself, and I feel proud of myself. I do. There's moments that, like, I go through that I look at the things that I've done, not just like on social media, just things that I've done in my own life. Like, if you were to see where I was at when she got released to where I am at now, like, it's a night and day situation. Like, I take so much better care of myself. I have fun with my kids. I'm not just so worried about them dying or about bad things happening to us, because that controlled our life for so long. I mean, to the point where I wouldn't stay at people's houses. Like, people had to stay with me constantly. It became like this huge thing. And throughout all the years, like, I can see like a night and day difference of like taking my life back. But I will say I struggle so much with what we just said right now. And I'm happy to hear that you do it too, because I feel like it's good to talk about it and to say it, because whoever's listening to this right now, maybe they do it also. And now they can understand that they're not alone.
Yes, yes. No, I was on a podcast literally, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? And I was telling them the story about the podcast, and then I was basically saying, but he's a great guy. And the person was like, Tara, I love you, but this person really was shady and told you that they were making a series of articles and they were recording stuff while they were trying to sell the podcast to me.
And you're just like, well, when you say it in that perspective,
And I'm like, yeah, yeah, I guess, and I'm like, I want to believe they're great guys, but at the end of the day, they, told me that there would be a series of articles when it was a podcast and they were trying to sell it and make money. And that's not fair. And, speaking of these experiences, I know that you have some experience with dealing with the media. Can we talk about that?
yes. So with media wise, so when this all had happened to me, I didn't talk about it at all. I didn't not talk about it to anybody, because people didn't believe me. I just kind of kept to myself. And then when it did come out, it like got thrown around everywhere. So, like, let me start over. When it happened, I was like put on every single news station you could possibly believe of. And everybody was like texting me and being like, oh my gosh, Angelique, like, I'm so sorry. Everybody wanted to do some type of news article with me. Like, people were outside of my house wanting to take statements from me. And I just isolated myself. And it calmed down after like 2 weeks. It calmed down. People started to forget, or, everybody went on to the next, whatever else was going on. So I was left alone for like a year. Then sentencing came. So once we went to sentencing and I walked out of the courtroom, I made my first statement. And then I had like a bunch of people that were writing me, like Anderson Cooper. I survived. There were some like people from like out of the country, like, that were wanting to do all these articles with me, but everybody wanted to take my story and change it And it was little details. Like, for an example, it was like, can we say she nicked you? Or let's just say that, like, you guys are best friends. Like, you guys have been best friends for years. And I'm like, no, like, I'm not going to lie. And I know these are all just like, honestly, the nicking part is kind of a big deal, but like all of them were like little details that they wanted me to change. And so I just didn't want to tell my story. I was like, this is crazy. Like, I don't want to go on news. I don't want to go on like TV and have to lie because I'm not a liar. I can't lie. So that's not going to happen. So I started turning everybody down. Then all of a sudden, somebody came into my inbox, which was a Dr. Phil producer. And they had asked me if I wanted to be on the Dr. Phil show, and I said no. And then they asked me why. And I said, well, because nobody on planet Earth can literally let me tell my story or let me like talk about what I want to talk about. They all want to take my story, they want to change it, put their own narrative into it. And that's just like all what I was getting. Well, the Dr. Phil show said, no, absolutely not. Like, we would love to have you on the show. This whole segment would be about you. And like, do you want to do this? Like, we'll explain what happens. You know, everything's going to be really easy. And they talked me into it. So I did. I went onto the show and it was completely not what they stated. I will say that my episode makes me really upset. And the reason why you hear me take responsibility or you hear me put like, I did this or I did that, I honestly do think it comes from the Dr. Phil show. When I had went on the Dr. Phil show, you know, you first walk on and you know, they play that little clip. It's like a 2-minute clip that kind of gives like the backstory of why you're on the show. And then all of a sudden it comes and it turns to you. And I remember I was so nervous. Like, I wanted to cry because I was just so nervous. And I remember Dr. Phil just telling me, like, you went through a lot. And I started crying just because of watching the video. It made me just feel like a little emotional. And he goes, well, I want to name the things that you did wrong. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, because you did some things wrong. And I just want to talk about that for a minute. And then he turns and he goes, let's look at this board. And it's a big projection screen. And it is a list of things that I did incorrectly. I did this, but why did I stay? This happened, but I did this. Like, he names off all of these things that got me into the situation. And and then at the very end, he tells me, and I'll never forget this. He'll be like, you were scared to ask your friend if she was trying to kill you. And I stopped and I said, yes. What do? Do you stop and say, hey, are you trying to kill me? And he goes, well, if the conversation has gotten to that, then it's time for the friend to go home. And then yes, I literally looked at him and then he started laughing. And then the audience started laughing with him. And then you see my face. I'm just like mortified. Like, what is going on? And I just couldn't believe that this was all happening. But since that day, I blame myself. I do. I constantly nitpick myself. I constantly sit here and go, okay, well, maybe if I didn't do this, then maybe this wouldn't happen. Well, if I didn't do that, then this wouldn't have happened. Dr. Phil thinks that he could survive this better than I did. But out of all of this, what I've learned is that I survived. Like, everything that I did got me into the situation that I'm in right now, which is survival. I survived. I'm living. I'm breathing. My child is breathing. So, all the things that he was stating, yes, are red flags. But nobody honestly thinks that somebody's going to come to your house with butcher knives and a pair of scissors and disinfect it and one of everything to take your child. Like, none of this, everything that happened that day didn't indicate that she was going to kill me. And he just took it and ran with it. And it just goes to show like what media can do sometimes, how it can just take things and switch things and narrate it into what they want it. And I'm not stating that it's always going to happen, but man, like, I've learned a lot with going through the media that, you know, sometimes they don't have the best intentions and sometimes people do want to exploit you for your trauma to get views, to get money, to do whatever they want. With the show, I will say that he had a new book that was being released and he actually looked at me and said, I have this new book that is just about people like Angelique, which my book will be coming out on August, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, that's why I'm here. Of course, I was here to help sell his book. He was using me as a prime example as to like what he talks about in his book, which is people that are too nice, that are too naive. And the way he was putting it, though, I was like, I'm sorry that I was an 18-year-old and I was naive. Like, you make it almost sound like an insult. Like, it's not an insult to be naive. Like, we all live and we learn. And I went through such a horrible event that, like, he was just making it funny and making it feel like it wasn't bad. So then I went the rest of those years honestly blaming myself, thinking that everybody in the country believes that I'm stupid and that I deserved what happened to me. And that was the rest of my healing journey until she got released. So that was like a good like 7 years of me feeling like that and not talking to anybody about my trauma. I just lived in my own guilt and lived with the fact that maybe the whole world thinks I'm an idiot.
I am incredibly sorry that those things were even said to you because that makes me so sad because those things are absolutely not true. I had such a completely different experience where I was not victim shamed, and it makes me sad because I also think that there was a period of time, and I feel like there was like a period of time too where we were just not talking about like this is not okay to say to someone, this isn't okay to say to someone, and everything he said like were not things to say to someone. And he has given advice to some other people that I know, and I mean half and half of the advice was great, but here's the thing, he's not seeing you one-on-one, he's seeing bullet point after bullet point, and he's not accurately able to even diagnose you. And he also, from what I can recall, is not a real doctor. So the things he is saying doesn't have merit.
That took me a really long time to understand. It did. It took me a really long time. Honestly, I didn't even know that he wasn't a doctor. I found this all out in TikTok. TikTok literally changed my life.
TikTok.
TikTok changed my life. I honestly didn't know that I was victim shamed or blamed until TikTok. Like, I had no idea what any of this wording was. That's how much I went into a shell after this all happened. I was like, the whole world thinks I'm stupid. I'm just going to go into the shell right now and just pretend like it didn't happen. And that's what happened. And then TikTok came out and somebody recognized me. And they were like, "Hey, weren't you on the Dr. Phil show?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about the Dr. Phil show." And then people were like, "Wait, you were on the Dr. Phil show. I watched you." And they were like, "I remember crying. Your episode was so sad because Dr. Phil victim blamed you." And I was like, "He what?" And they were like, "He victim blamed you. He shamed you." And I was like, "Is that what happened?" And I had to, that then I had never I only watched my like segment one time, and then I never wanted to watch it again. So then in 2021, I rewatched it and I realized, holy shit, he did. Like, he absolutely like took my trauma and just pretended like you could bring up all these bulletin points and tell me everything I did wrong. Hindsight 2020. How do you, everybody knows that. Like, we could all sit here and nitpick things that we did wrong or maybe things that we could have done better. And absolutely, like, I will sit here and say there was probably things that I could have done better. But I'm a very firm believer that if I would have changed anything in my pattern of what I did, there may have not been the same outcome, which is me surviving. And I think as
Yeah.
survivors, we tend to do that to ourselves. We tend to nitpick little situations or say, well, we could have done this better. You obviously heard me in this podcast right now saying things that I did wrong or saying, but I know deep down inside that anything that I would have done differently may have turned into a different circumstance and I may not be here. And I'm living proof to show that I do it to myself still. But I think we all have to realize and give ourselves grace, like you said, and remember that we did everything that we possibly could. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but that's where I was going. And I'm also very like scatterbrained sometimes.
Well, I feel like this is the perfect note to drop off before we get into a little bit of the Patreon, where we'll maybe do like 10 extra minutes of extra content and just like talking about the healing journey, maybe more media experiences. But for the people dropping off now, where can we find you on social media? Where can we find your TikTok?
Yeah. So my TikTok account is if you type in like Angelique Robledo, usually I pop up. Or it's gonna be Angelique Monet Zero. Hmm. Man, I don't think I know my TikTok handle. I want to say it's Angelique Monet Zero, but don't hold me to that. Just write my name in there. You'll find me. And then I also have an Instagram, which is Angelique.Monet. But same thing. If you type Angelique Robledo in, it usually pops up. And I love answering any questions that people have. You can find my whole story on there. There is a 9-part story. So I have a playlist on TikTok. On Instagram, you have to go to my reels and then you have to go down like 10 to 12 reels and you'll see black marks, like black cover photos that say part 1, part 2, part 3. But that's how people can find it.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, and we'll continue on for the Patreon. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Terra's Baddies Club with Angelique. If you like this episode, please give 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or if you're watching on YouTube, please comment down below. It really helps with the algorithm and it really helps grow the show. It also helps get the survivor stories out there. So until next time, I'm Terra Newell, and thank you so much for listening.